Welcome to NMS. A high carbohydrate diet builds more muscle than a ketogenic diet. Now, anyone that's ever done bodybuilding knows for a fact that obviously carbohydrates are very important for weight training. They're very important for any sort of explosive movements. So there's obviously an advantage to having carbohydrates in your diet. Yes, a lot of people like to diet on a ketogenic diet, probably under the misconception that ketogenic diets are better for fat loss, but we can talk about that in another discussion. But there is a clear advantage of high carbohydrate diets over ketogenic diets for strength gain, especially when you're doing, strength training in a gym, in a low rep format. Okay, and this is important to understand, and you've also got to understand there's a lot of reasons for it. Now, the reason that carbohydrate diets are actually more important for strength training and for muscle building, right, is basically down to three key factors, okay? Training performance and volume. In other words, like when you're training and you've got carbohydrates in your diet, you're actually helping the fast-twitch muscle fibers because they can only use glycogen or glucose for energy, okay? They cannot use ketones for energy, and they can't use fats for energy. Only the slow twitch muscle fibers can use fats for energy, not the fast twitch fibers. Now, the fast twitch fibers are the ones you're actually using for strength training, and they have the greatest propensity for increasing in size. So these are the ones we want to train when we do strength and hypertrophy training. Now, the second one is the anabolic hormone environment. Now, insulin is actually an anabolic hormone, okay? Yes, it can cause fat gain when you've got large amounts of carbohydrates and you've also got high calories, but insulin is actually very good for preventing muscle breakdown, okay? And the reason that is because under high insulin conditions, okay, in other words, you've got glucose in your body, you're not going to break down proteins for energy, okay? And that gets us into step 3, which is gluconeogenesis. That demands protein. And what basically happens then is that you're breaking down amino acids, especially the branched chain amino acids, which is your more anabolic amino acids. Okay, you're breaking them down to produce glucose, which you then use for energy. So you may be eating lots of protein, but you're not having any carbohydrates. And if you're not having any carbohydrates, you've got to go and create it in some way, otherwise it's going to affect your strength training. So it's very important to go and have basically enough glucose in your training or enough carbohydrates in your training to fuel your workouts. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be a high-carb diet, and that's an important note to make. It means that you just got to have enough carbohydrates in your diet to help you with the performance of your workouts. Now, maybe you're in a calorie deficit because you want to lose body fat, but still having carbohydrates in your diet is muscle sparing and potentially building still at the same time, even if you're in a low calorie diet or below your maintenance. So it's important to understand that. I'm going to put this video on YouTube. I'm going to leave snippets of it on different channels so that you can go and have a look back at it. But it's important that carbohydrates are very good for fueling your workouts, and they're very good for hypertrophy. Thanks for listening, guys. Subscribe, like, share, and comment.